This is the trail. It goes up the cliff here and circles around back and forth, zigzagging, and ends up at the monastery there, which is built into the side of the cliff. In the old days, the monastery would have looked something along those lines, with these little caves in the sides of the cliffs where the monks, where the hermits would dwell. As time progressed, they built little chapels and then eventually turned it into a formal monastery dedicated to the Temptations of Christ in the 40 days in the wilderness. Here we are walking through the chambers. You can see it's rock cut, part of it, right into the side of the cliff, and then part of it built up and overhanging a bit. This is a little grotto up ahead where the students are having a discussion about the Temptations. Here's the kitchen with the monk. How are you?
And he said the first temptation is pretty obvious, physical gratification, food, water. So that one we understand. The third one, power, glory. But he says the second one is a little bit more nebulous. What is represented by Jesus throwing himself off and having angels wake him up? And this is what he said. Perhaps this is all.
These are the monastic chambers here on the sides of the cliff. You can see the cliff over on this side, about a 3-foot walkway, and monastic chambers that overhang. So we've traversed about the whole length of the monastery here, and we end up at the main gate. Again, built right into the side of this cliff. This is an old chamber where they had a millstone, olive press, something like that. You can see the remains of the wooden beams and so forth that they had as part of this, where they do some agricultural productivity. And then down here is the main gate. There's a little turn that goes down into the path. This is a side chapel in the Monastery of Temptation called the Quruntul. These are frescoes that they've done here relatively recently. Last 100 years or so, it's been rebuilt by the Greek Orthodox Church. It's still run by them. This is built right into the side of the cliff. You can see the rocks of the cliff here. And then you can see a little apse that shows Jesus during the temptations in the wilderness. And down underneath here they have a stone that they claim is the rock that Satan tempted Jesus to turn into bread. So this is a little chapel dedicated to that portion of the temptations of Jesus. You can see also here some vague outlines of cherubim. Either they never finished it, or they painted over them a little bit. Here you've got a crucifixion scene with the hand of God coming through from the heavens there. And then up above you've got the Christ Pantocrator, a little dome over this chapel. So this is a fairly small place. You can see it's just perched right on the edge of this cliff of the monastery. And if you look out the window, you can see the cliffs about 500 to 1,000 feet above the base of Jordan Valley. Here they've got little rocks, those pilgrimage tokens. Take a rock from the site here and then pay a little donation. If you come down from the side chapel, you enter into the main chapel dedicated to the Temptations of Jesus. This is all, again, 19th century. There was a monastery here in the Middle Ages, but it was more or less abandoned in the early modern period and then rebuilt around 1890s by the Greek Orthodox. We've got a lot of old icons up in the sides of this chapel, and this is the stairway that leads to the chapel of the stone, and then frescoes painted on the columns. It's a very narrow chapel, again built right at the side of the cliff. And then they've got an iconostasis with the veil separating the Holy of Holies, which is beyond that little piece of cloth there. And then up above again, another dome with God the Father and the Holy Spirit depicted up there. That's interesting. Father, incarnate Father figure in the dome rather than Christ, which it usually is. And then you can see the Holy Spirit as a dove there on his chest as well. There, of course, is Mary and Jesus sitting on his lap, and then several angelic figures here. This is all 19th century Greek and Russian Orthodox style of art. Then out of this main chapel, there's a little side chamber here where they sell pamphlets and so forth to the tourists that come, postcards, whatnot, candles to burn at the altar. And then through this little door, they have a little walkway. You can go out and have an overlook of the Jericho Valley. You can see that extends just like an oasis in the midst of the desert here. We're right on the edge of that. And if you turn in this direction, you've got clay caves in the sides of the cliffs that the monks would dwell in the old days when there was a large number of monastic people living here, the monks, hermits and so forth, living in those caves. It'd be quite an ordeal to climb over there and get your food and whatnot. And this is a little balcony that leads down to there's a bell tower down there in the side chapel that we discussed, and then this is actually an overhanging balcony. I take this camera, you can see underneath, I think, we're right on the edge of the cliff. It goes straight down 500 feet and into this wadi that flows on down to the Jordan Valley. So this is the balcony overhang of the Monastery of Temptations. And then over there's another little balcony you can see. And this is for the monks. They have little chambers there. There's not many here, just a few, half a dozen maybe, and they have their own little chambers and balcony there. So this is quite a spectacular view. We've got the sun against us. It's about 11, so it's shining into us a bit. In another hour or two, it'll clear up the haze when the sun's behind us.